the Bible wanted us to know about Elijah. This was that truth. He was a man just like us. He was a man just like us. And so wherever you are this morning, just be reminded that God has a plan for your life in the same way that God had a plan for Elijah. Elijah, when we left off last week, God was working in Elijah's life, and then suddenly the brook dried up. And he had to go to a new school, if you will. It was a school at a place called Zaraphath. And so if you have your Bible this morning, I invite you to turn to 1 Kings chapter 17. As we look at 1 Kings chapter 17 this morning, we're going to find out if we've been to Zaraphath. Have we ever been to the place called Zaraphath? 1 Kings chapter 17. I'm going to read verses 8 through 24. 1 Kings 17, beginning in verse 8. God's word says this. And the word of the Lord came to him, saying, Arise, go to Zarephath, which belongs to Sidon, and stay there. Behold, I have commanded a widow there to provide for you. And he arose, and he went to Zarephath. And when he came to the gate of the city, behold, a widow was there gathering sticks. And he called to her and said, Please get me a little water in a jar, that I may drink. And as she was going to get it, he called to her and said, Please bring me a piece of bread in your hand. But she said to him, As the Lord your God lives, I have no bread, only a handful of flour in a bowl, and a little oil in a jar. For behold, I am gathering a few sticks, that I may go in and prepare for me and my son, that we may eat it and die. And Elijah said to her, Do not fear, go, do as you have said, but make me a little bread cake from it first. Bring it out to me, and afterward you may make one for yourself and for your son. For thus says the Lord God of Israel, The bowl of flour shall not be exhausted, nor shall the oil run empty, until the day the Lord your God sends rain on the face of the earth. So she went and did according to the word of Elijah, and she and her household ate for many days. The bowl of flour was not exhausted, nor did the jar of oil become empty, according to the word of the Lord, which he spoke through Elijah. As you notice, the story continues. It just takes a sad turn. But now it came about after these things, that the son of the woman became sick, the mistress of the house. And his sickness was so severe that there was no breath left in him. So she said to Elijah, What do I have to do with you, O man of God? Have you come to bring my iniquity to remembrance, and to put my son to death? He said to her, Give me your son. Then he took him from her bosom, and carried him up to the upper room where he was living, and he laid him on his own bed. He called to the Lord and said, O Lord my God, have you also brought calamity to the widow whom I am staying, by causing her son to die? Then he stretched himself upon the child 3 times. And he called to the Lord and said, O Lord my God, I pray to you, let this child's life return to him. The Lord heard the voice of Elijah, and the life of the child returned to him, and he revived. Elijah took the child and brought him down from the upper room into the house, and gave him to his mother. And Elijah said, See, your son is alive. Then the woman said to Elijah, Now I know that you are a man of God, and that the word of the Lord in your mouth is truth. We pray with me. Dear Heavenly Father, I pray that you will give us great wisdom today. Lord, as we see your provision, but we also see the challenge and hardship of life. Lord, I pray that you'll be with each person that's here today. Lord, some are going through joyful times, Lord, where you just seem to be doing miracle after miracle and providing. Others, Lord, just seem as though everything that can go wrong does. And I just pray, Lord, that you will use this message to open up our hearts and minds. Help us to understand your word. Help us to understand how it applies to our life. Lord, we love you and we praise you. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. This text begins, and we really don't know how long Elijah had been at that brook. We know as we look back at last week, we knew that God had called Elijah to go to this brook. God provided Elijah. Ravens came and brought him meat. Ravens came and brought him bread. He had water. But suddenly the brook dried up. So how long was he at the brook? It could have been a few weeks. My guess is somewhere between a few weeks and a few months. Because there was no rain in the land. I mentioned that there was a brook. And so it's not a very large body of water. And so in order for the brook to dry up, other bodies of water would have had to have dried up. So it would have been a chain reaction. It could have taken a few weeks, a few months. Just like with, right now there are homes that are flooded, all through Eagle Lake and other places. Even if the rain stopped now, it's going to take a little while for the water level to begin to fall. So he was here for a few weeks, a few months. But really, it's not how long he was there that matters. It's what was he doing while he was there that matters. As I've looked at Scripture, I can only figure out he was doing one thing, nothing. He was basically on an extended vacation. I mean, he had it made. He had it made. He was just I picture him just kind of chilling out at kind of a lazy river. And the birds would just bring him 3 meals a day. I mean, it was a good life. Nothing wrong with that vacation life. However, the brook had to dry up. It had to. Why did the brook have to dry up? Here's why. Ministry is about people. Ministry is about people. And Elijah couldn't do ministry while he was there, the Lord providing for him. He had to get out of his comfort zone. The brook had to dry up because ministry is about people. And so first he had to experience God for himself. He had to experience how God provided for him. But then he had to take the provision, take his understanding of the Lord, and do ministry elsewhere. And so the Lord called him to a place called Zaraphath. You say, well, why Zaraphath? It's a very great question. And in fact, as I was reading this text, I found this out. Whenever Jesus began his public ministry, this was the very first sermon that Jesus ever preached about. I thought that was interesting. I remember the very first sermon that I ever preached. I was maybe 19, 20 years old. I preached on my favorite passage. My favorite passage is the thorn in the flesh. I always felt like that passage here was Paul wrangling with a thorn in the flesh, but God still had a plan for his life. And so I remember I preached the sermon, and a few people lied to me and came after the service, did a good job. It felt really good. You know how people responded to Jesus' first message? Do you know how they responded? They tried to push him off a cliff. No pats on the back. No good job. They tried to push him off of a cliff. Now, I've had some messages where I almost wanted to go and jump off a cliff after. Maybe you've thought the same thing after you've heard some of my messages, right? But what was his message? Why was it so bad that people just wanted to go and push him off that cliff? Well, it actually tells us in the Gospel of Luke chapter 4, verse 25 through 26, Jesus was preaching this text, and he gave an example, and this is what he said. He said, "But I say to you in truth, there were many widows in Israel in the days of Elijah, when the sky was shut up for 3 years and 6 months, when a great famine came all over the land, and yet Elijah was sent to none of them, but only to Zaraphath, in the land of Sidon, to a woman who was a widow." Jesus' message was clear. God could have sent Elijah to a local widow that was in need. The famine was widespread. There were people in need everywhere. God could have sent Elijah to his own people. But God loves all the nations. And because God loves all the nations, God sent Elijah to another nation, to another people group, because God loves them too. And that message caused the Jews, who were just so self-consumed on them and their little church, it caused them to be so consumed with anger that they tried to go and push Jesus off a cliff because of the simple truth that the Lord loves all the nations. How do you respond to that message? How do you respond to recognizing that Zaraphath is simply a place in your life where you recognize that the Lord loves all the nations? Does it make you mad? Sometimes I think it probably doesn't make you mad. I remember whenever I was in high school, I used to always just think the opposite of love was hate. The opposite of love was hate. But I remember my English professor, she said this. She said the opposite of love is not hate, it's indifference. It's indifference. And sometimes I wonder if the reason that we just feel indifferent to the other nations is just because we are loveless towards them. The very first message, when Jesus came, the first message that he wanted the people to know was this: God loves all the nations. There, that is a place where you recognize that the Lord loves all the nations. Have you been to Zaraphath? I want you to notice how this woman responded and how Elijah responded to going to Zaraphath. Notice how Elijah responded immediately in verse 9. It says, "Arise, go to Zaraphath, which belongs to Sidon, and stay there. I have commanded a widow there to provide for you." The language is interesting, isn't it? It says, I have commanded a widow to provide for you. I have commanded her. Now, I don't know what Elijah was thinking. I know what I would be thinking. Typically, if the Lord were to say to me, I've commanded someone to take care of you, if the Lord told me that, I would just logically assume that the Lord also told them that. Right? I mean, it just makes sense, okay? If the Lord says, I've commanded them to take care of you, God's also going to tell that person to take care of you. But you'll notice as we go through this text, that's not the case. She had absolutely no clue that she was supposed to be taking care of Elijah. She didn't even have the resources to take care of herself. So what do we learn from that? Don't miss this. What do we learn from this? Whenever God commands us to do something, how he commands us is an opportunity. An opportunity. There are no coincidences in the kingdom of God. And so that random person that comes to you because they have a need, could it be that God commanded you to take care of them? That person who needs to come and stay with you, could it be that God has commanded you to take care of them? The same principle applies to when the disciples were talking to Jesus. Jesus said, you didn't give me anything to drink. You didn't give me anything to eat. You didn't take care of me. The disciples were confused because they were looking for a command. They said, when did we say this? When did we not feed you? When did we not give you water? And he said, you didn't do it to the least of these. We need to have our eyes and our ears open for opportunities because the Lord has already commanded us to take care of his people. The Lord has already commanded us to witness to people. And so how the Lord commands you is an opportunity. The Lord had commanded her and then gave her an opportunity. But notice how she responded to this command. She was completely clueless when Elijah came to her, and Elijah probably had no idea that she didn't know. She said, as the Lord your God lives, I have no bread, only a handful of flour in the bowl and a little oil in the jar. For behold, I'm gathering a few sticks, that I may go and prepare for me and my son, that we may eat it and die. Can you hear the desperation there of this woman? Can you just hear her desperation? I would love to be able to take care of you. But it's interesting how it opens up. She says, as the Lord your God. She recognized that Elijah was an Israelite. She recognized that he believed in God, but that wasn't her God. She was clarifying that from the get-go. Your God. As surely as your God lives. But notice she said, look, I don't have enough to take care of you. I don't even have enough for me. Me and my son, I'm actually in the middle of making a last meal. I'm simply gonna get some sticks. I'm gonna make a fire. I have a little bit of oil, a little bit of bread. I'm gonna mix it together. I'm gonna make a little biscuit, right? And I don't know if y'all have ever tried to split a biscuit before. Maybe you've been at a Cracker Barrel and there's one biscuit left. That biscuit doesn't go very far, especially if you're a Baptist. But here she had one biscuit left, and she said, "I'm gonna break that biscuit in half. I'm going to eat some, and I'm going to give it to my son, and that's it. We're both going to die." Fearful. Terrified. Why shouldn't she be? She'd already lost her husband. She'd already suffered in the famine. From a human perspective, why should she not be terrified? Why should she not be afraid? Some of you are going through similar situations. You think your brook has dried up, your resources have dried up, everything seems to be happening to you. But this text gives us two words for why you should not be afraid. These are these two words: the Lord. The Lord. Notice if you look at this small passage, you'll find the Lord 10 times. Over and over again, the Lord, the Lord, the Lord. Notice what Elijah said to her. Do not fear. Go. Do as you have said. Make me a little bread and cake, but first bring it out to me. Afterwards, you may make some for yourself and for your son. Look at verse 14. For thus said, what's it say? God of Israel, the bowl of flour shall not be exhausted, nor shall the jar of oil be empty until the day that, what's that next part? The Lord. And rain upon the face of the earth. So she went and she did according to the word of Elijah, and he and her household ate for many days. The bowl of flour was not exhausted, nor did the jar of oil become empty, according to who? What he spoke through Elijah. I think he's trying to say something to that woman, don't you? The Lord. The Lord is going to provide for you. Here what we have in this example is a demonstration of faith. A demonstration of faith. Because notice she had to have faith in order to survive. He did not say, you and your son go eat, and then with your leftovers, bring me some. No, he said, empty it all out. Make that little bit of cake, only instead of splitting it for you and your son, bring it to me. After I have eaten, God is going to take care of you. This little widow woman, she had to have great faith. Word faith is a verb. It's an action word. The book of James says faith without works is what? It's dead. Faith without works is dead. And so essentially if that woman said, well, I have faith, but did nothing, she would not have been provided for. And she would not have seen God at work. Faith is working. Faith is doing something. Essentially, the Bible says that if you have faith, you're going to back it up with your behavior. So I wonder this morning, what does your behavior say about you? You say you have faith. You say you believe in God. What does your behavior say? What does your emotions say? What does your heart say? This woman had to have faith, and in faith, she gave to Elijah. And can you imagine what it would have been like the first time she approached that cupboard? All right, this God, I don't know this God. This random dude showed up at my house wanting my last biscuit. All right. I had nothing to lose. That's probably what she thought. I have nothing to lose. Just picture her going to her cupboard, just opening up her cupboard. She had the oil. She had the jar, taking it out, peeking in, just looking. Just enough for a little bit more. That continued. It says for some time. We don't know how long it continued, but it was daily. He didn't give her enough for a week, a month, or a year. And we want that, don't we? We always want to be able to say, okay, what's the long-term picture, God? How are you going to provide for me? But that's not how God works. That's not how Scripture works. Daily bread. Just like in the wilderness, it was manna in the morning, manna in the evening. It was daily dependence on God. Here was a woman that had to learn that principle at Zaraphath. Zaraphath is a place where you recognize that the Lord will provide in all circumstances. All circumstances. Have you been to Zaraphath? Have you learned that the Lord provides through all situations? Now, if this story ended here, and some preachers might be tempted to end right here and just close the Bible. It's a good short little sermon about how God provided for this widow woman. She had no hardship, no pain. Everything was great. It's a good story. But God's Word's not a story. And in real life, people have real problems. And so here we see God's great provision, but then we see the hardship and the heartache that happens in real life. And so notice everything is going great, everything is going smooth, and then there's just this twist that no one saw coming. Elijah did not see coming. Verse 17. So now it came about after these things that the son of the woman, the mistress of the house, became sick. And his sickness was so severe that there was no breath left in him. So she said to Elijah, "What do I have to do with you, O man of God? Have you come to bring my iniquity to remembrance and put my son to death?" Now we know nothing about this woman. We know nothing about her. We don't know her name. We don't know how old she was. She was likely a young widow simply because she still had a young child. But we know nothing about her other than that she had been through a lot. She had struggled her entire life. And then you just pick up on the bitterness that she's feeling in that moment. The anger, the hostility of the moment. Everything's going good. This unknown God, I'm trying to learn to provide for him. And then just out of nowhere, that God that you claim is a God of provision took my son. Did you come, Elijah, oh man of God? Did you come to remind me of my sin? To remind me of my iniquity? And we do that, don't we? Whenever hard times come and we lose people close to us, we just wonder, God, you're just punishing me, aren't you? You're just... Yeah, well, if I hadn't have done that, if I hadn't said that, this wouldn't have happened. But God, you're just teaching me, you're punishing me through this, aren't you? So she just brought this storm of frustration and rage to Elijah in a moment. And notice that Elijah is really interesting because he really just tries to play it cool. Have you ever been there? It's like someone just comes to you and you really just like, man, they're just going through all these emotions and you don't know what to say, so you just try to play it cool like you got all the answers. And so it's like, oh, no, it's cool, it's no big deal, right? It's fine, just give me the boy. It's all going to be okay. Takes the boy, he goes upstairs to his own room, to his own bed. And then when the widow woman's not there and he's just alone with God, then notice how Elijah prays. He says, "O Lord my God, have you also brought calamity to the widow whom I'm staying by calling her son to die?" I mean, one moment he just kind of playing it cool with the widow. It's fine, God's going to provide, right? We do that, we just kind of put on this facade. But then when we get alone with God, it's, God, what are you doing? God, what are you doing? He repeated the same thing the woman said. Lord, are you just punishing me? Are you just punishing this woman? Lord, what in the world are you trying to teach us? And then he does something really strange. Just whenever we read it and we look at it, we think, well, what exactly is he doing? He brings the boy to his own bedroom. He brings the boy to his bed, lays him out, and then it says that he stretched himself onto the child 3 times. He called to the Lord and said, "O Lord my God, I pray you let this child's life return to him." Now, as far as the actions, as far as what Elijah was doing, we have no clue. We don't know if he was just trying to act out exactly what he wanted God to do. Lord, make him warm, bring life back into him. We're not real sure as far as what his actions were saying. I'll tell you what I think, though. It's just my thought on this. Notice what he did. Notice his behavior. He brought Elijah to his room. He brought Elijah to his own bed, and he lay on him. It's almost as though Elijah is just saying to the Lord, just take me. Just take me instead. Just take my life and let my life somehow come back into this child. But don't take this little boy from his mom. Don't take this little boy. Let me die instead. That's what Jesus did. Exactly what Jesus did. Jesus, he lay down on the cross. And he pleaded on our behalf, God, just take me instead. Don't take my children. Don't take the men and the women of the world. Take me instead. The Bible states that sacrifice was sufficient for all people. That all people, anyone who's in this room, anyone that's listening on the radio, can call upon the name of the Lord today and be saved. But notice it wasn't the actions, so we don't need to focus too much on his actions or read too much into his actions. Notice it wasn't the actions that got God's attention. It was Elijah's words. It was specifically, it was Elijah's prayer that got his attention. Notice what he said, stretched out. He prayed, "O Lord my God, I pray to you, let this child's life return to him." Notice verse 22. It says, "The Lord heard the voice of Elijah." I love that. James says he was a man like us who prayed. Your prayers matter. Here it is that the Lord heard his words, heard Elijah's voice, and the life of the child returned to him, and he revived. Elijah took the child and brought him down from the upper room to the house and gave him to his mother. And notice what Elijah said. It's really interesting. He said, "See, your son's alive." Kind of like, I told you so. I mean, he wasn't back to just playing it cool. I mean, he didn't mention that, man. He was just fasting and just praying, just pouring out his heart to God. He just kind of put on this facade. Brought the boy back, the boy's alive. I told you so. I told you so. Zaraphath is a place where you recognize that the Lord is in control over death. Who's in control. And for some situations, in some people, he does choose to heal. But sometimes he doesn't. Sometimes he doesn't. Some of you are thinking this is a great story, but I lost my parents. I lost my spouse. I lost my children. Good story, though. When Jesus came, he said, I am the resurrection and the life. Book of Revelation, it says that the Lord basically reaches his hands into his pocket and he has the keys to death. He has those keys. And for some of you, the Lord, out of love and mercy, things that we don't understand, he chose not to heal on this earth. He chose a better thing to heal in the world to come. For some of you, you're going to have to wait a little bit longer for that resurrection. You're going to have to wait a little bit longer to hug your mom and dad. You have to wait a little bit longer to kiss your spouse again. Wait a little bit longer to hold your child's hand. Zaraphath is a place where you recognize that God has control over life and death. Have you been to Zaraphath? Have you been to that place? Notice how the passage concludes. Notice the very last verse. Here's this widow. What is she going to say? It says, then the woman said to Elijah, now I know that you are a man of God, and that the word of the Lord in your mouth is true. Now I know. Here is this woman that was, from our perspective, a pagan woman, a lost woman who was outside of the church, outside of Israel. And out of love for all the nations, God sent Elijah to this woman who did not believe the word of Elijah, did not even believe through the provision, but in that miracle of bringing her son back. She said, now I do. Now I believe that you're who you say you are. God is who he says he is, and all the words in your mouth are true. She was at Zaraphath. The Hebrew word for Zaraphath, it means to crush, to melt, to smolder. Zaraphath is not a place for us. Zaraphath is a situation that we all go through. But in that situation, in the crushing, in the smelting, it's whenever you recognize that the Lord is in Zaraphath with you. So I ask you this question. Have you been to Zaraphath? Have you learned to be like that widow? To trust the Lord in all situations. Will you pray with me? Dear Heavenly Father, I thank you that you didn't leave off the good parts. I thank you that your word doesn't just have stories of joy and stories of provision, but Lord, it has stories of messy situation, because your people are messy. We are fallen. And I thank you that you're not just the God of physical provision, but you're the God of messy people with messy lives and messy situations. I thank you for that great love and care that you showed this widow woman. And I thank you for the great love and care that you have for all your people. I thank you, Lord, that you're a God who provides, or that you're a God that is over life and death, or that we can trust you in all situations. Lord, be with those here today who are going through a situation where it feels like they're just being crushed, just feel as though they are being overwhelmed, just feel as though they cannot go on. Pray they'll be reminded that you're in Zaraphath with them. They can trust you with this situation, Lord. They can trust you with their lives and their family. We love you, Lord. We praise you. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. this morning, I just want to extend an invitation to you, invite you to come and pray to the Lord. Some of you are in the midst of Zaraphath. You're in the midst of trying to understand who God is. You can trust Him. You can trust Him. He's going to take care of you. He's going to provide for you. I invite you to come and pray for yourself. Pray for other people who are going through hardship. There may be someone here today who you recognize that you're like that widow and that you've never really believed God. You know of God, you've heard of God, but He's never been your God. Today can be a day where you can join the widow and say, now I believe. Now I believe. I would love to tell you more about how you can be saved. Those who are listening on the radio, you just have to put your faith in the Lord. Confess with your mouth, believe in your heart, and you can be saved. Maybe there's someone else here who you want to join the church. You want to find out more how you can be a part of this church and how God can work through you. So I invite you to stand at this time, and I invite you to come.